Happy Monday, everybody. We are back for another Monday Miracle. And this week we are talking about immune system struggles, specifically recurrent ear infections in a now 15-month-old. When he came in, he was 13 months. And when he came in, he was current double ear infection. A couple months earlier had a single ear infection. A couple months earlier had a double ear infection and a sinus infection and some pink eye, okay? So for you parents who have sent your kid to daycare, that could sound a little bit familiar with you. And that was the case for this kiddo. Is there was some stress going on. He was a little bit of a colicky baby. He was working through some constipation. There were some neural things happening from an early age. And then when went into daycare, his immune system really got tested, as it always will, right? And I'm not saying we don't expect kids to get sick when they go to daycare. We absolutely do, right? They're getting exposed to new things. But we shouldn't see them getting sick over and over and over again. And with this kiddo, recurrent ear infections, right? So why does that happen, right? All these kiddos are exposed to all this different stuff. So when they're exposed to new things, yeah, we expect them to get sick, right? Their immune system has to learn about it. It has to build up the antibodies. And then the next time it comes in contact with it, it should be strong enough, or at least stronger, to fight it off. And what we saw with this kiddo is that that wasn't the case, right? And so they were starting to have the conversation with their ENT and their pediatrician of, hey, our tubes, something here was something to get brought to their attention. And that just didn't really sit right with them. They weren't necessarily looking, it wasn't that they weren't interested, but they were just looking for, hey, maybe there's a different route or another option. Because they weren't so set on, they didn't love the idea of kind of putting their kid through a surgery. Not that tubes is a huge surgery, but it is a surgery nonetheless. They were looking at something that's called a hummingbird procedure, which is where there's just local anesthesia only when it comes to the tubes. So they were just looking for options. And so they came across us and we did his nervous system scans, and we were able to identify that, yes, the neurology that controls the immune system, which a lot of it is right up in this upper neck region, was an area where there was lots of stress and tension. We looked back at his birth, and sure enough, there was a lot going on there. And so, how does that happen, right? And how can we help? Well, when there is stress stuck in through here, the neurology that controls the immune system is right up in there. And the neurology that specifically controls the drainage is right up in there as well, right? You can think of it as so simple. It's almost like plumbing, drainage, right? That's really what it's all about. That's what's happening with these recurrent ear infections, right? It's not that they're coming into contact with things, right? They come into contact with it. Sure, it might happen the first time you get antibiotics, and that clears it out. But if we don't have proper drainage, that water, especially when the teeth are coming in around that age, that fluid in there sits in there, and it creates a perfect environment for these bacteria to get in there. So we had that conversation with parents, and they're like, oh yeah, that's simple enough. That kind of makes a lot of sense, right? Almost too much sense sometimes. And so what we started to do is with very light, simple adjustments. And the pediatrician was actually a little worried, like, oh, chiropractor for kids, make sure they're not cracking the neck. No. Definitely not at this age, right? That is not something that we need to do. Very light, very gentle, very easy. And what we've started to do is allow that everything to drain. And guess what? Since starting care, it's been 2 months now, no ear infections, right? How about that? And that was the first time that they've gone that amount of time without ear infections in, it's been over like 6 months that they just in this constant cycle. And immediately since starting care, we broke the cycle. Now we're working to get stability, okay? The other thing that this kiddo is working through is constipation. And guess what? It's all kind of one and the same, right? These ear infections start to drain. They go into the gut, right? And then all of a sudden now that kind of messes with the gut as well. And so he's also seeing improvement in that. And what often comes along with recurrent ear infections is some speech delays, because obviously that plays a role in terms of the ears and being able to hear and process and integrate and all that. And we're starting to get improvement there as well. So really awesome stuff. With it being that time of year, I know parents out there are always looking for, hey, what more can we do to strengthen our kiddos' immune system, even if they haven't had some of these recurrent ear infections or strep or whatever it may be, respiratory. Neurology controls immune system. It's the neuroimmune system, not just the immune system. So if the neurology is off, if there is stress in the immune system, stress in the nervous system, that is going to directly affect how the immune system functions as well. So there's tons of supplements that you can do, but we really get to that root cause. And so if you are looking for more, if your kiddo has struggled, if you know this cold season is coming up, your kiddo's the one that's always sick, they're missing school, whatever, they're always bringing it home from daycare, we can help with that. There's usually something a little bit deeper. So send us a message. We'd love to help as we get into this kind of kick the sick season of the year. Have a great rest of your Monday.